It took me way too long to realize that a previous work desk setup was literally frying my nervous system, and as a result, it was making my productivity and my OCD so much worse. This was due to EMF, or electromagnetic field exposure. Now, the video you're about to watch was one of the first videos I made for a completely different channel about reducing electromagnetic field exposure at your work desk. And honestly, it's still super relevant, especially if you work in an office you actually have some control over, or maybe you work from home as well. Now, my setup these days, literally where I am right now, is drastically different. However, I also live and work out of a caravan, fully off-grid, mostly pretty much all powered by DC electricity or direct current, with zero Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, and ultra low EMF. And the difference for me has been freaking enormous. My thoughts are clearer, I'm calmer, I can work so much longer, and my OCD doesn't run the show. So in the video you're about to watch, here's what I used to do to lower EMFs at an old work desk setup, and how you can start even if you're not living off grid, maybe yet. Now, at the time of recording this intro, I have learned how to drastically reduce EMFs for work desk setups so much more. However, this video you're about to watch would be a great start, especially if you're testing the waters. So enjoy the video. This is my previous work desk setup and the electromagnetic field, more specifically, the voltage per meter surrounding my work desk. And as a result, this is the voltage directly coming onto me that could be interrupting my workflow and focus on a daily basis. And this is my new work desk setup. Here is the voltage per meter surrounding my desk, and here is the body voltage as a result of the new change, before and after. In this video, I'm going to bring you along with me to show you the changes that I've made to my work desk setup to specifically lower the overall electromagnetic field surrounding it. Essentially, I'd like to take you through my thinking and the reasons for the changes that I have made. So hopefully you can use any or even all of the changes that I've made, and at the very least, with my thinking and the reasons, you'll be able to adopt a better understanding to make changes, maybe not only to your work desk setup, but even in your everyday life. Now, when it comes to electromagnetic fields, you might even be on a spectrum of 3 different camps. The first, you might not even know what the heck I'm talking about when I say electromagnetic fields, but you decided to click on the video because you want to up your productivity. Firstly, I'd like to applaud you for doing that, because we can all do with a bit more productivity. But I also applaud you because you've just entered what could be a massive rabbit hole. A good one nonetheless. The second camp, you might even know what EMFs are. You've heard of them in the past. Your best friend or a work colleague might have even said, you should probably check this out. And who knows, maybe you're at your maximum bandwidth for everything else you were trying to incorporate in your life, and you just decided to put it on the back burner. That was totally me not too long ago, until we actually had a number of customers request an EMF reading on one of our products. And this is literally where it all started. Just push came to shove. I'd heard of it before. I put it on the back burner, and it got to the 5th customer that asked the same question. So I thought I would do a little digging and actually get that information for our customers and clients. And into the rabbit hole I went. Now, the third camp, you might even know what EMFs are, and you've directly felt the benefits of lowering your overall EMFs. And just in case you're confused on what they are, I'm going to explain not only that, but I'll also cover a bit of an explanation. So I cover each camp of person, whether you don't know what they are, you've heard of them before, but you put it on the back burner, or you've actually directly had benefits from lowering your overall EMFs. I think this video is going to be fantastic to up your productivity, and no matter what camp you're in, it is going to help you. Okay, so for the first timers that maybe haven't heard of EMFs, or you have, but you're kind of in that, I don't know, limbo stage where you think EMFs are only for the tinfoil hat wearing type, that is totally fine. EMFs are essentially electromagnetic fields, and there's a lot of misleading information out there, and sometimes it's quite confusing because good information seems to be really hard to come by and very rare. This is all on a spectrum. Now, what make up electromagnetic fields are really 3 main types. First, you've got your magnetic fields, so think of power lines, appliances, the electrical circuits in your home. Often, if there is a high magnetic field, you're either close to power lines, or there's even a wiring fault in your home. Maybe you've got a general contractor to come in and they've done a bit of a dodgy with your wiring. even some electricians don't even know what to do when it comes to this type of thing to keep magnetic fields as low as possible. Then you've got your electric field. So again, think of appliances, the electrical wiring in your home, power lines. You will notice that there is a lot of crossover, but the way that the magnetic fields and electric fields affect your body can vary quite drastically. Now, there is the strongest correlation to date, and from my understanding of what I know about EMFs, with magnetic fields and health issues with individuals. And the strongest correlations comes from either homes or schools really close to power lines or power stations where those fields would be at their highest. Now, lastly, we've got radio frequencies. So think of anything that is wireless connectivity, from cellular, 3, 4, 5G, anything that connects your phone, enables you to make calls, watch Netflix on your phone. There's also Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Now, each one has its own type of, I guess, level of power and effect on the human body. Now, you will notice that they're all on the EMF spectrum because they all use a magnetic force of some sort, voltage, and some type of frequency. So even the lower appliances, power in your house, it runs on a certain frequency, which in this case is alternating current, AC. It's essentially doing 50 to 60 cycles per second. That is what frequency is. And for us to get wireless connectivity, the voltage or the power is usually a lot lower, but the frequency is a lot higher, ranging from thousands to even billions of cycles per second. Now, with that understanding, you might even now be thinking, well, it sounds like we're always around and being swamped with essentially these EMFs. And if that is your thinking, you are 100% correct. Next, you might be thinking, if they're so apparent and everywhere and a part of our everyday life, should I even be concerned? And is this even affecting me at all? Now, this is where I'd like to give you a quick backstory into what made me go from, I guess, a tinfoil hat critic, thinking that EMFs were, something not to be worried about, all the way to an absolute believer. Like, this is at the forefront of mind in my everyday life because it has made one of the largest differences in my life as a whole. It is honestly a bittersweet moment because if you knew me on a personal level, you would know how obsessed and passionate I am about overall health and fitness and the overall changes that I've made in my life to either get more optimization out of my body for my health or my work or just to play. I mean, after all, when we have our health, we can have a million goals, but when we don't have our health, we only have but one, and that is to get that health again and try to improve it the best way that we can, because we all know that health comes first, and if it doesn't, we pay the consequences in almost every facet of life. Now, you might be thinking that this is a little bit extreme, Mike. Geez, talking about health and fitness in this extreme way. Well, this is what you might find online when you start searching for EMFs. It's a bit concerning because I truly believe, this is my personal opinion, that the standards around EMF are way too low when it comes to the most common environments that we surround ourselves in, whether it be home, work, or pretty much anywhere. And when it comes to actually finding results about others getting results from lowering their overall EMF exposure and their benefits, I mean, it's not rare. You will find it if you go online, but amazing results is not as common as I thought it would be, which on one hand makes me think maybe I am what is considered EMF hypersensitive, where I really am sensitive to these overall EMFs on pretty much any of the spectrums, or good knowledge and an understanding of it is very hard to come by. So there is just a lack of understanding. And so most people, whether they are hypersensitive or if we're all technically the same, but most people just haven't put two and two together. They haven't drawn a correlation between the two and the effects that this could be having on their life. Now, coming back to this perfect storm that I guess I found myself in, I was living in one house for 2 years and without even knowing it, because again, I didn't draw the correlation. I was about 100 meters or less from a monster cell tower emitting multiple different networks for its coverage, including 5G. Again, this is theory, but I think it may not be a coincidence. The following house that I went to had pretty poor signal when it came to 5G. Again, this is all in hindsight, so thinking about it. So while the radio frequency side of the EMF spectrum was low for that, I didn't notice until I did a reading on my house for the electric field. Okay, again, somewhere on that EMF spectrum. when I was doing the testing on the product that a customer asked for when it came to the information about the EMFs for this specific product, I got a meter for the product, did the reading, made the video and let my customers know. And then I thought I had the meter anyway, so I would go through my entire house just to see what the reading was like. And when you get into something first, you don't really know, like, it'll come up with a number. This thing's flashing red at me. I don't know what it means. So I had to go deeper down the rabbit hole to figure out what these numbers even mean. Now, according to building biology standards, when it comes to mainly sleeping areas or other areas where you occupy for a long period of time, I think it's defined as 20 minutes or longer of a stay. So sleeping especially, because you're in your most vulnerable state and really your body should be calming down as much as possible. But other areas where you might be occupying for long periods of time, aka your work desk, it could also be a concern. So that electric field is 70 volts per meter or lower. All right, so that is technically the threshold. And even if it was at that level, it is of extreme concern, okay, according to building biology standards. So this meter that I had, it was about 100 Australian dollars off Amazon, you know, typical Best Buy. So I thought, you know what, maybe I went cheap on the meter and this thing is toast. So I gave that a drop kick to get another meter, a more expensive one. And I'll even leave some links to show you the meters that I got, because I've gone through quite a number to make sure that I was getting the right numbers and accuracy. Got one, same reading. So I started getting a little worried. I'm like, these readings around my house are tremendously higher than even the building biology standards are saying what should be a maximum. You know, I was getting readings around my house also in places that just did not make sense. What was still concerning was this property was brand new when I moved into it. So I thought there wouldn't necessarily be issues. Everything would be up to standard. But again, the electric field didn't make sense. If you were to put your hand, or let's say the meter, next to a power switch, a power point, a light switch, there are wires with power running to it. So the field around that area is going to be there. That's an obvious one, right? But you're not really going to leave your head or your body too close to it for too long periods of time. So it shouldn't necessarily be a concern. Remember, the concern is where you are spending prolonged periods of time, because you don't want to expose yourself to these EMFs for long periods. What didn't make sense in my house was the fields were just everywhere. I could be standing in my office where I'd work for 8+ hours a day, and no matter where I was in the office, it was 70 volts per meter or above, all right, at my head level. What was weird is the levels were even high at my feet on the floor. And usually on a single story, you'd be closer to the ground, closer to the concrete slab that the house should be supported on, that is also completely grounded. So what didn't make sense to me was the floor was emitting an electric field, like high levels, not just low levels, really crazy high levels. The ceiling was crazy high. Anywhere in my house, even away from the walls where you would expect the wiring to be, even let's say the middle of my lounge room, that was quite, you know, open. It was an open plan and the levels were just high everywhere. I could not get away from it. So it actually made me invest quite heavily into making sure that the numbers I was coming up with were quite accurate before I was going to make some pretty big changes in my life. At the time of filming this video, I'm telling you now that I have personally found massive benefits, life-changing benefits, and things that I will be doing going forward that are non-negotiable for me when it comes to EMFs. I've gone from starting with a cheap meter at only 100 Australian dollars all the way to spending almost $3,500 on just one meter, that's in Australian dollars, or just over 2,000 US dollars on just one meter that measures magnetic fields and electric fields, 600 Australian dollars on another RF meter. I'll cover what meters they are. This is not something that I'm saying you have to get, but it's the extent that I've gone to make sure that what I'm reading is not only accurate, but the changes that I'm making to improve my environment when it comes to EMFs are actually making a difference. And especially with these videos, I want to make sure that the numbers I'm giving you are also as accurate as possible with my knowledge and understanding of EMFs as they are at the moment. So what made things worse and why I called it a perfect storm was that new house I moved into was not only high in electric fields, but at the time I was working directly on my computer, which is an Apple Mac. It's gonna be relevant why I actually say what brand and model it is. And I had another 2 laptops, usually in my surrounding area because they were for different purposes. I also had 2 phones with 5G. I had Wi-Fi running to all these devices in the house and all the cellular turned on. Essentially, long story short, I was in an EMF echo chamber, if you will. And I know it's cliche, but hindsight is a beautiful thing. Looking back at, what I did, but not actually knowing what I was doing, it finally opened my eyes to what had happened a little bit longer than 1 year ago when my health just took an absolute nosedive, but also at a time where I had everything to date that I knew of absolutely dialed in the best that I could with the understanding and knowledge that I had. Whether it came to my training, my diet, my overall lifestyle, my habits, I had everything dialed in. So personally for me, it's almost as if I had less variables to make me think that I should have a nosedive to my health. And for such a long time, I could not work out what had happened. My testosterone just went through the floor. My energy went through the floor. It was at a period of time where I couldn't help but think that my daughter had just turned 2. She got to an age where she just wanted us to be more a part of everything that she did, which I just found absolutely amazing and beautiful, and I wanted to. But it was also at that time where my hormones and my energy just tanked. And for the life of me, I just felt like everything just took so much more effort, including playing with my daughter. Just going on the first trampoline that she had ever experienced in her life was a massive effort. It felt like I just wanted to lie down the whole time. Now, when it comes to feeling sluggish and like you've got no energy and it just takes so much more effort than you think it should, when it comes to work is one thing, but when it comes to my daughter and such a big reason that I do anything at all, that's a massive concern. And I did so much to try and climb out of this hole that I felt like I was in, all the way to going as extreme as going on what's called the carnivore diet, and all the way to what is considered the lion diet. I couldn't eat any foods. Everything would just upset my stomach. It would just make me feel like absolute crap. And it led me to literally feeling like all I could eat without having a reaction was red meat, water, and salt. So that happened, and it also got me to trying out all these health modalities and technologies like infrared light therapy beds, exercise with oxygen therapy, so essentially you're breathing in 4 times richer oxygen, and also pulse electromagnetic field therapy, cold plunges, saunas, all these other different modalities, essentially motivated just because I was trying to get my health back. I was willing to try anything. These things are great if you want to optimize from a neutral level, but I was literally just trying to come back to neutral, back to normal. It's not like I'm an athlete of any sort, maybe when it comes to work, because I do try to fit in as many productive hours as I can in every day. But long story short, I just wanted to get my health back. And when I made these changes to my overall EMF levels, I guess it was yet another thing that I thought, I hope this makes a difference. Like, imagine if this is the thing that is the largest domino yet, but I also tried to not let any biases sway me. But to date, I have gotten rid of all of those health modalities and technologies. I just feel like it's not like they're redundant. They haven't made as much of a difference as lowering my overall EMFs and changing my environment to the best of my ability has. Now, even if this video or any of the videos that I do create end up just changing one person's life, to be similar to the effects that these changes have made to my life, my job is done. Honestly, like, it has been that dramatic that I couldn't help myself but create these videos because I was desperate. And I truly believe that there are people out there that are most likely also desperate, trying to just do so many different things. There are also some that, probably don't care about their health as much. But what was more concerning for me personally, and you might be in the same boat, is you already do so many different things, trying to improve your life. And who knows? I'm not saying this is 100% going to be the definite big domino, but at the same time, it also could be. So your next question might be, if I make these changes, is it even going to make a difference in my life? Is it going to improve and benefit my life? I can't answer that and be 100% sure for you. But what I would recommend is making as many changes as you can and just seeing what happens. I mean, this is not necessarily me saying you should be without these modern day technologies, like anything electric, pretty much anything that uses connectivity. Like, how is this benefiting me by telling you to stop using so many devices? Like, I use these devices on a daily basis. And like I said, I put myself almost in a perfect storm without even knowing it. But now just having an understanding, I still use many, if not all, the same devices. I still live in a house, but I'm getting all the benefits of the dramatically lower EMF levels on a daily basis. Now, why I want to take you through the desk setup is because your workplace is most likely somewhere you spend a lot of time. Just like sleep, it could take up 1/3 of your day. And like I said, these EMF levels and the effects that they have on the body, they're super, super low, but it is the accumulation over a long period of time is where the effects may take place. Now, a lot of the information online may say that EMFs are not to be concerned about because if they're not warming the tissues, so essentially anything that is measured in the immediate moment, if they're not warming the tissues, it should not be a concern. But there have been no studies to see what the effects are over a long period of time. And if you think about it, there can't be, because we are only ever increasing our exposure more and more on a daily basis, especially when we are exposed to even more powerful levels of radio frequencies like 4G plus 5G and whatever is coming. Things are going to get pretty interesting. So this is my previous work desk setup at an electric desk. So an electric desk that actually raises and lowers using a motor. I pretty much had what looked like a cobweb of wires. Also, didn't really concern me having low aesthetics because of the cables. Didn't really look at it all the time, but I also didn't understand the effects that could have on the electric field. In case you're wondering, the meter that I am using for the magnetic fields and electric fields that I will show you very soon is the Gigahertz Solutions NFA 1000. It is a industry and worldwide recognized meter. So technicians and specialists alike use this meter because it is one of the best in the world for magnetic and electric fields. It even does a body voltage skin test as well, which I will be covering in this video. Okay, so this specific device, the NFA 1000 by Gigahertz Solution, it makes a clicking noise. It makes the electric field become that much more apparent, which I find such a great feature because it essentially just brings an audio to what we can't even hear. It brings a visual on the numbers on the screen to something that we can't see. So essentially it's completely invisible to us, which makes it that much more scary. So this is technically our eyes and our ears. So you'll notice that it makes a clicking noise, and the higher in volts per meter, that is the reading that I'm getting now, the higher that it is, the faster the clicking will be, and vice versa. So this particular work desk setup, the volts per meter would range from 2 volts per meter all the way above 500 volts per meter. Now remember, I'm only going to measure the areas where I think my body will be in direct contact with the field. So if my feet are near the cables, if essentially my legs and even my crutch was in the field of, let's say, the electric motor that powers the stand-up desk, I want to measure those areas to see what the difference is by making the changes. Now, when it comes to measuring the magnetic field and the magnetic field surrounding my work desk, the biggest concern was actually coming from my Apple MacBook Pro, more specifically near the keyboard and the trackpad. So essentially, my new work desk setup, I would move that as far away from me as I could to get the reading as low as possible outside of the background magnetic fields surrounding the environment, which includes pretty much around my home. So as you can see, it does fluctuate, and I will mention that with magnetic fields, you really want to stay as still as possible for at least 2 to 3 seconds to get that reading. Some of you might be thinking, geez, you're moving around a lot, but I do try to make sure I do pause in the spots where I have more concern to make sure that I get an accurate number. And even if it did come up with a reading, 2 to 3 seconds is enough just to see what it is, make the change, remeasure, hasn't made a difference. That's essentially what I go off. Finally, this is the body voltage skin test. We say skin because it technically is just touching the skin. The skin has amazing resistance, so whether or not the voltage goes all the way through to specific organs is another story, but the voltage is definitely there. It is causing some kind of stress to the skin. Now, this is what I was experiencing on a daily basis. Again, this is a setup that was lower than I even had it before, but my body voltage in millivolts around this setup, especially when I would say touch my Apple MacBook Pro, could range anywhere from a few hundred millivolts all the way up to about 4,000 millivolts. One of the biggest arguments against this is that skin does have amazing resistance, and it does, but if you didn't necessarily have to have this stress coming onto the skin or the body, and you can still do what you needed to do, whether it's work or play, whatever it is, would you not rather the lower voltage? So when it comes to making changes, whether it be your work desk or just your environment as a whole, at home, at work, or anywhere else that you might be, even if you're in an environment where you have no control, take a shopping center, for example, or maybe you're going to a family or a friend's home, you're not going to change the environment specifically there, but there are definitely things you can do. And with a better understanding of not only EMFs, but how to actually lower or reduce the overall EMF exposure, it'll make a massive difference, especially for those that are, I guess, considered hypersensitive, or maybe everyone's technically hypersensitive, and the more knowledge comes out that is decent information, maybe more people will actually start correlating the effects. So who knows, this might be something that literally everyone needs to abide by, almost like a new rule of their life that just makes them feel better. And I really hope that it does, especially for you. Now, I like to follow the rule of the 3 R's, okay? The first one is remove. This one is technically the ultimate priority number 1, because if you do this one, the other 2 become almost obsolete. So the first R is remove, whether you are removing yourself or remove the actual thing. Now, removing yourself is an obvious one. It might even just be a form of removal, whether it's permanent or temporary. Who knows? You might have a charger plugged in, for an example. You'll be able to think of way more once you understand the principles. Let's say you have a charger plugged in and the cables are just hanging everywhere, and this is ready to charge something, right? But you're not charging anything. Technically, you're still drawing 240 volts or 115, 120, wherever you are in the world. You're drawing that power into the cables. The cables are ready to charge whatever it is that you want to charge with those cables. Let's take an iPhone or a phone, for example. If you don't turn the power off at the power point before it gets to either the board or the actual charger itself, those cables are full of charge. They are ready to go, and because of that, they are technically emitting an electric field. Depending on the cable and the insulation that it has, the field can vary dramatically. Now, this one's an easy one. You can either turn it off at the power point or literally unplug it from the power socket or the board, and there you've essentially removed that field. Now, this might be temporary because you might need to actually plug it in again. So what do you do then? All right, so this is just an example of many that you can actually approach with these 3 R's. So the first one is remove. Can you remove it? If you can, great. Maybe it's temporary or maybe it's not. The next R is range. Can you increase the range? Because here's the thing about EMFs, or electromagnetic fields. They drop off exponentially the further away that you move. Even more so down the spectrum you go. So nearing magnetic fields, I've found with the things that I have measured in the past, they drop off like really quickly. So even if I am around a high magnetic field, the highest that I've read in the past have been from power lines, but you'll even see even something like my MacBook Pro. I'm yet to measure other computers and what they emit. I'm not sure if it's because of the way that these are built. A lot of the frames and the laptops are actually built out of a metal. So I'm not actually sure if that makes it worse or better. Regardless, I know the magnetic field is there, but even the way that I've positioned my laptop now and the way that I work, I don't ever touch my laptop because of the magnetic field that is so close. And literally just by distancing myself like a foot. So I've gone from direct contact where, let's say, my hands are inside of that magnetic field, just a foot away is close to 0 effects from that specific magnetic field. All right, so there's other magnetic fields in the environment I might not be able to get away from, but this one specifically, I've just used the second R to increase my range and therefore drop off that specific EMF. Now I found electric fields, again, they all drop off exponentially relative to their power and their frequency. I don't want to make this too confusing, but I've just found magnetic fields easier to get away from when you increase that range, even not by much distance at all. Electric fields are a little harder, but a lot easier to get away from than radio frequencies. Now, when it comes to, let's say, a room, a living room, bedroom, whatever it is, you'll have wiring in the walls, you'll have your appliances, you'll have light switches, power sockets. The closer you are to them, the higher the electric field. The further away you are, the lower the electric field. Again, it drops off exponentially. But a house that has really good wiring, you should be able to be in the middle of a room and not necessarily be exposed to too much. Now, this is where my previous home just did not make sense and I had to get out, especially with the condition that I was in. Let's call it the perfect storm, like I said before. Who knows, maybe I actually dug myself a hole and almost made myself electromagnetically hypersensitive. Let's say a person that has not been exposed to as much EMF, they're able to go into that home and not feel the negative consequences. But if I was to go back in that home, I would instantly get a headache and various other effects. I'd get agitated, frustrated, for what seemed like almost no reason. But anyway, you want to increase your range no matter where you are. And let's just say that you can't remove it. And no matter where you are, all right, so you've increased your range as much as you possibly could, and the field is still higher. And finally, moving to the last R. So the last in the priority list and its effectiveness is reflect. Now, reflect can come in many different forms. You might even put up a type of shield that is going to block a certain electromagnetic field from coming through. Magnetic fields are a lot harder to shield from. Electric fields, a little easier, but still tricky, and you need to know what you're doing to actually shield them properly. Now, radio frequencies can be pretty tricky, but the closer you are to the subject, so whether it's the thing that's giving out the field, if you can cover that up in a certain way, it can be pretty easy to reflect or shield from. Or maybe you're the actual subject that you want to shield. So maybe if it's you, for an example, you could be in a Faraday cage, which is essentially a specific material made of metal, usually with a mesh-like structure. If you're completely covered in this, there is no radio frequency able to get to you. Now, if that thing is grounded as well, it has the potential to completely block and shield or reflect electric fields as well. So those are the 3 R's. Whether you make these changes to your work desk because you see what I do and you want to do it and gain the benefits from it, the 3 R's you'll be able to use in almost everyday life to lower your overall EMF exposure. So you just have to see what works with your current lifestyle and circumstance. So remove, range, and reflect. With that said, let's go over the changes that I've made to my work desk so you can understand my thinking, essentially applying the 3 R's. So this is the new desk setup, which I'll take you through now, and the reasons that I have chosen what I have chosen. So I've spoiled myself with a nice big 2.4 meter long Tasmanian oak wooden desk. There's a nice finish on the top, and the size I've chosen is not only for space in regards to its length, but the depth is what I want to focus on, because the further away I am from not only my screen, but pretty much all of the electronic components, the further away I am from the electric fields. So when it comes to anything with wires that is being powered by 240 volts AC, any of the cabling that's used underneath, the further away I am, the better. So understanding the 3 R's, let's start off with remove. Now, I obviously want to have a work desk, a nice one to work at, to stay productive at. I need to get work done, and it's just a lifestyle that I have chosen. For the sake of lowering my overall EMFs, I'm not going to not work on a computer and do what I was doing before. If at all I could, even maybe lowering the overall time I spend working, maybe that's one way to actually remove the EMFs to some degree. But other than that, I've essentially set everything up so I can still work for prolonged periods of time, or as long as I need, and still get the benefits. Now, when it comes to the cabling, let's just take a look at that first. You would have noticed in the previous desk setup, there was just cabling everywhere. I will admit, I've just recently moved into this new house. The cabling was a lot worse than it was prior to moving. But At the same time, I've definitely spent long periods of time with cabling, almost like cobwebs underneath my table. Yeah, just not knowing about EMFs, but also I just didn't care because it was underneath the table. I didn't care what it looked like. But overall, it was just a mess for not only aesthetics, but EMFs especially. So as you can see now, it's a lot neater. The cables are together and I'm running them away from not only me, but the table as well. Now what I've actually done is removed some speakers that I had before. The sound that actually comes out of my computer for now, look, I might change it later because I have been able to lower my overall EMFs that much, as you will come to see. I've just removed the speakers altogether. It's just less electronics. I'll see how I feel and maybe add them in later. But for now, there is less electricity that I'm pulling out from the house's electrical ecosystem, so to speak, and into this specific room where I spend a lot of time. Right now, I've just got the absolute bare basics while still applying the following two R's. Now, that moves us on to the second R, which is range. Now, I really wanted a nice long desk so I could lay everything out that I needed, whether I'm working on multiple computers at once or an iPad, plus a nice big desk setup for my main computer and the monitor above, as you can see there. Outside of the length, I wanted a really deep table. A standard desk is usually 600 to 700 millimeters in depth. This one is 900 millimeters, so it's almost like your standard dining room table. And the reason I wanted to do that is so that the computer is not only, decent distance away from where I'm working, so is the monitor, but as we go underneath, that's obviously where the cables are, and pretty much any electronics that I could have, whether now or in the future, I'm just much further away from that. So on top of the nice large work area, I'm even further away from those, not only the wall, but the electronics, the wiring, from everything I have set up here. Now, one other thing that I have done is actually gone to a wired keyboard and a wired mouse. Now, this is kind of a cross between remove and range. So the interesting thing about the Apple MacBook Pro is while the electric field wasn't necessarily too high, even directly in front of it, what is a more relevant test to do is the body voltage skin test. Sometimes that doing just one test won't be adequate enough. You need to do multiple tests because when it comes to EMFs, things behave in some pretty particular ways, and sometimes just going off electric fields alone won't necessarily be relevant. In this case, while the electric field was low, as soon as I touched my computer, especially when plugged into the power while charging, the body voltage on my skin was crazy high. I'd like to also point out here, so this is essentially the finished work desk setup, and you'll notice when I touch my computer, even though it's on a grounding mat that is wired directly to its very own grounding stake in the ground outside, that wire is running out the window, my skin voltage still goes up to about 800 millivolts when I touch, even with a single finger on my Apple MacBook Pro. Again, which is why I wanted to remove that contact or ability to make contact with the computer, because 99.9% of the time I'll have this computer plugged into power. I don't necessarily want to think about charging it, so that's why I want to have it plugged in. But it's also why I've removed the contact, so I'm touching rather a wired keyboard, which has almost nowhere near the amount of effect when it comes to that skin voltage. Not only that, you might think, well, why not go a wireless keyboard with some Bluetooth? And that is where you'll increase the radio frequency. And I was trying to keep that down as well, which is why I've gone to a wired setup. Now, I mean, the thing is going to stay in the same spot, so why not? And when it comes to the electric field and even the body voltage, this keyboard was amazing. The same goes for the mouse. I didn't necessarily want a wireless Bluetooth mouse. Again, that increased the EMF exposure as well. I was just trying to get the best out of all of it by, again, going back to a wired. Sometimes even the accuracy of the mouse, I've actually enjoyed having a wired mouse, sometimes even better than the wireless. And that leads us on to the last R, which is reflect, or in another way, shield. Now, what I'm actually doing here is trying to get the voltage, whether it is body voltage, so this the test done on my skin when I'm holding the NFA 1000 hand probe, or the electric field. I'm trying to take the electric field away from where it is reading the most. So whether it's the cabling over at the wall there, or it is actually my computer in of itself, you'll be able to see that as soon as I touch the computer, because it's also plugged in to the power, I get a massive body voltage reading, even though the voltage per meter is decently low. But this is what this specific fabric does. It actually shields or reflects the electric field coming out at me. But you'll also be able to notice I've got this mat underneath, which is now also collecting a lot of the electric field that's coming out of the computer, and also the wiring that it could be near as well, including this little power substation that connects my monitor and everything else, including hard drives. It's essentially collecting that electric field and running it out the window with a specific grounding cord that is going to a completely separate pole to the grounding mat that I have for where my feet are gonna go. So I've essentially got the voltage around my workstation being, let's say, reflected. So it's taking the electric field nearest all these electrical components, devices, appliances, and taking that extra voltage out the window to a separate grounding pole that is stuck into the ground outside. Now the second is any voltage that I still can't eliminate and that is still going to come onto me, that you'll be able to see as the body voltage test. What I'd like to do with that leftover voltage is essentially reflect that by taking it out through my feet, and again out through a completely separate grounding cord and into a separate grounding stake also outside. So with the leftover electric field that has been lowered as a result because of all the changes, this is the result as the skin voltage that is now coming onto me. So just for your information, 200 millivolts as a result is amazing. That is really, really good. In other words, 0.2 volts. Sometimes that is tremendously lower than even background skin voltage just being in a room. So this is really, really good. And then being able to even divert that even lower, so using that last R, reflect, as you can see, as soon as I touch my foot, which is a great point of contact, especially very passive. If you can set one of these up on the floor, that's amazing. But I'm essentially taking that skin voltage from 200, which is still very, very good, all the way down to, averaging between 40 and 50 millivolts. I say separate because I want to have any of the electric field that's coming out of the devices that I use up here completely separate to what I am touching. All right, so what I've found in the past is I've used the same cord. In the past, I would have had this connected to this down here. And what I have found is I might just divert some of the electric field from my devices here straight into myself. Even though some of it is being taken out, there might still be some coming into me and then going out as well. So rule of thumb, it is always, always, always best to not only follow the 3 R's in that specific order, but try to eliminate as much of the electric field or pretty much any EMF as much as possible before you go through to reflect. One of the best rules, which is why the order of the 3 R's makes so much sense. So this video is getting a lot longer than I thought it would be, and I still haven't necessarily covered radio frequency, which I was going to use the Safe and Sound Pro 2. Alrighty, so if the audio is a little bit shot with this, apologies, I've had to turn off Bluetooth devices, such as the Bluetooth microphone that I use for recording. So even these levels right now are a little bit higher than they usually are, just because I've also got my camera on, and I've also got it on a gimbal. So I also try to think of these things as, are they going to be on for long periods of time? So it might skew the rating just a little bit, but I'll give you just a quick example of me turning on one of the Bluetooth devices for the microphone. And this isn't even pointing to it. Okay, so that's just turned on. Now, I wouldn't necessarily be recording for, all day, which is why I'm still going to use the technology, but I mean, if you were doing this all day, that's a lot. And the Bluetooth frequency is not as, I guess, powerful as, let's say, cell towers. So the effects on the body may feel quite different. So the power might come up, similar but yeah, again, the effects may be completely different. I'm just going to turn the device off. That's just on idle. I'm not even using the Bluetooth. So I'm going to reset that. That should come down back to an average of about 1,000, but usually without the gimbal on or the camera on, it'll be around a couple of hundred, which is fantastic. So this device has been created specifically according to building biology standards, and you'll actually see a very easy gauge to go off. Now this is in accordance to sleeping areas. All right, so you've got slight, moderate, high, or extreme concern. Really for sleeping areas, you want it to be slight. And it takes getting down to 1 microwatt per square meter. Between 1 and 10 will situate the lights to slight or moderate. So anyway, I'm going to turn on my computer's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Just watch the signal. This isn't even pointing to it. So this particular meter is directional. I will try to give a reading. Tip it down a bit. Okay, you ready? Wi-Fi on. Now this isn't even connected to Wi-Fi. It's just pinging out a signal to see, what it can connect to. I won't even connect it. It jumps up like way higher than that. I'm going to turn that off. I'll go to Bluetooth, turn Bluetooth on. Signal jumps up just a little bit, enough to be like, hey, does anything need me? Does anything need me? Constantly. And I'm going to turn Wi-Fi on as well. Again, this is just on Wi-Fi, and the power can be magnitudes greater when in actual use. So when you're using the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, the reading could be tremendously high. So this is just an example of how effective it can be if you switch off Wi-Fi and you switch off Bluetooth altogether. I'll reset that max value. And again, I wouldn't usually even have this high reading because I've got the camera on, which for some reason the Wi-Fi is by default turned on, and the gimbal. So I usually have it around 1 to 200 microwatts per square meter, which is an amazing reading. So again, that's taken all the wired setup as much as possible, and my phone is next to me, but in this RF blocking pouch. And I've tried to eliminate this as much as possible now, to the extreme that I specifically chose and most recently just moved to a house that had the lowest reading when it came to radio frequency. You might be thinking, geez, it's a bit psychotic. Look, I really wanted to see if it made a difference, and all I can say is it has only been absolutely amazing. I've never been so excited to only have 1 bar at 4G. Yes, it kind of does suck. Sometimes messages don't even come through. It's a little bit strange. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go to that extreme. I've just had to do things a little differently to compensate. Even if you were to really make the places you spent the most amount of time as low as possible when it comes to radio frequencies, I can tell you now it's going to make a difference. Again, I have covered the fact that I've gone to a wired keyboard and mouse. That again has essentially removed that radio frequency. There is no radio frequency because it's not wireless, right? It's not using Bluetooth. I've gone to a wired Ethernet cable. I've completely turned off the Wi-Fi. So again, removed the Wi-Fi and I've gone to a wired instead. These days, I don't even have the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth turned on at my computer. Even if you've just got these on idle, they are emitting a frequency, essentially pinging out a signal constantly, being like, do you need us? Do you need us? And that is coming onto you whether you like it or not. And the signal can be pretty strong. So I've turned that off, wired pretty much everything where I can. And when it comes to actually having my phone, I either keep it in a separate room, especially if I don't want to turn it on airplane mode or pretty much disconnect from the world and I still want to receive calls or messages. I use the second R, which is range. The more you can increase the range, like I said, the power drops off exponentially. Now, that still actually emits a signal everywhere. It's much lower, but if you really wanted that as low as possible, and pretty much what I do these days is this is an RF blocking pouch. On the inside of this pouch is lined with a specific material made of copper that blocks the signal. So that is the equivalent of just being completely disconnected without having to turn off your phone completely. Again, it's a little bit quicker just to get into the pouch. Now, please keep in mind that turning on airplane mode still doesn't remove the signal. No one can get a hold of you, but your phone is still emitting pretty high power signals. Again, pinging almost as if to say like, do you need our service? Do you need our service? Constantly. And I've been surprised at how strong that signal could be. So even if you turn it on airplane mode and then you have that phone in your pocket, which again, range works both ways. It drops off exponentially, but it also increases exponentially the closer that you get to the source, or you're bringing yourself to the source. So having it on your leg, you're having almost direct contact to that EMF, even on airplane mode. Again, high power, but when you've actually got the phone like full running, say connected to 4G, 5G, whatever you're close to in regards to cell tower coverage, there are direct correlations that are without a doubt. There is now no debate, especially when it comes to men that carry phones that are running 5G in their pocket, their testosterone levels decrease. If that doesn't say something about the dangers of EMF, especially when it comes to radio frequencies and 5G, and who knows, again, like I said, who knows what is coming, fucking 8G, 10G. Yeah, things are gonna get crazy, but I think that should be a concern in of itself. Lower testosterone in men because you have your phone in your pocket. I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily think about this as a concern. Again, the general consensus of the belief in the past was if this does not warm your tissues, if it cannot be measured, that it is actually changing the temperature of the tissues on your body because of direct contact or close proximity, it is not harmful. But what is it doing over prolonged periods? Because some guys have their phone in their pocket all day, every day, then they go to sleep and their phone is right next to their head, again, near the body. Okay, so long story short, when it comes to radio frequencies, my house is amazing. I just want to say that. The house that I've chosen to live in now is amazing. If you can do that, great. You don't have to do that, but if you can, amazing. Maybe you're in a certain situation or circumstance where you just can't move. All right, I get it. It's totally fine, but just do what you can using the principles of the 3 R's to do your best to remove as much of it as possible across all spectrums, magnetic, electric, and radio frequencies. Again, radio frequencies, because the reach is just so dramatic. You know, it's almost like you can't get away from it. So just think about what is connected. Cellular is one thing, but you know, people have to work, people have to stay connected somehow. Think about the Wi-Fi. Can you go to a wired setup? If so, great. I'm gonna cover another video on that just to give you a comparison, because you may be trading radio frequencies for electric fields, because as soon as you go to a wired setup, sometimes that wire is crazy high in electric fields. I know it gets complicated, but I will cover that in another video. So just do your best. And I really hope that everything I've laid out in this video has helped, and you may be able to use any or all of the changes, and you can actually start seeing the benefits. I think you will feel the most benefits when it comes to areas or periods of your day where you spend, you know, long periods in that one spot where the fields may be quite drastic. Again, it's not acute changes. It is going to take time to actually notice the benefits, but when you do, you're really going to wish you probably made these changes sooner. That's my guess, because it certainly has been the case for me. You know, I really like to use the analogy of the frog in boiling water, which is kind of a scary analogy if you think about it. It's really how things catch up to you and you don't even realize it, because it's been happening for so long at such a slow rate. It is one of the most difficult things to actually draw a correlation to. How are you supposed to know that this thing has been affecting you when it's taken 1, 2, 3 years to kind of catch up? And I think with a better understanding, you'll be able to approach life very differently, but also have the positive benefits show up as a result of all the changes that you're able to make. Just even understanding is going to be the first step, and then you'll be able to start seeing things. Just like when you buy a car and then you start seeing that car everywhere. It's been crazy what I've, you know, come to realize and draw the correlations to. I do want to make a video in the near future. The house I've moved to is about an hour away from, you know, a few family and friends, and I make a trip weekly. And the drive is amazing. It's just super cruisy on a freeway. And I've been able to correlate every cell tower that I drive past with pressure in my head. I mean, the drive is so cruisy that I'm able to sink into my body. I mean, it's not like I have to focus on the road as much as, you know, driving through the streets and everything. It's just, you know, cruise control and make sure I stay straight. So I've been able to sink into my body and really pay attention, just so I can point out not only my sensitivity, but I honestly believe many more people are actually more sensitive than they think they are to these EMFs, especially radio frequencies, because they have such a far reach and it's so hard to get away from. So this video is essentially to point out like how not only sensitive I am, I don't want to be like, hey, look how sensitive I am. It's more so to hopefully get you to be able to correlate the effects. Like, I get a headache, or at the very least, it starts with pressure in my head when it comes to cell towers, but if I'm around a cell tower for too long now, I start getting agitated. And before, maybe I didn't draw the correlation. Maybe I thought it was something I ate. Maybe it was a conversation I thought, annoyed me for some reason. But now it is, I know. There's a very distinct feeling I get. And it's almost like now, because of the correlation, I associate that feeling, cell tower. Feeling, cell tower. And sometimes it takes me just to have a quick look around and I'm like, oh, like there it is. So it's like I am my best meter. Anyway, the drive I was talking about, I want to sit in the back seat blindfolded while someone's videoing me and the drive so that I could literally pinpoint cell towers. I think I'd be able to pinpoint them within 300 to 400 meters. To the point where I think I would be able to almost feel as we're passing it. That's how sensitive I am. And I honestly think, again, this is not just about me. I really think that so many more people are more sensitive than they think they are. They just haven't drawn that correlation. So anyway, as you can tell, I like to ramble, but I just want to make this topic a lot more apparent. And I want to, put some good information out there so that people can reclaim their health, or at the very least, not have these things in our modern world affect us as negatively as they could be at the moment without you even knowing. So I really hope that this video has made a difference, at the very least, shine a light on something you may not have been as aware of before. And hopefully you can actually feel the difference and the benefits from, at the very least, just being more aware of it, let alone making changes in your life. Now, just in case these videos get taken offline, why do I say that? That's a topic for another video, but in case they actually get taken off social media, you will be able to find them on trueearthing.com. That is the new site that I own now. The only thing that I ask you do, if you found this video helpful and you think that this could potentially benefit someone else, please do that person a solid and send this video to them. Share it on your social media. I really think that videos like this may not gain traction. Again, that kind of topic and why I say that kind of thing is a topic or a conversation for another day. If you found value in this video, please share with those friends, because again, if we are able to help just one person feel the positive benefits and effects that I have felt, our job is done. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really hope we can make a massive difference. All the best.